Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. 2 years ago, I was living in a house in Tempe, south of Phoenix. I found the place through Airbnb, and as you can imagine, already a precarious situation, right? There's no formal lease and all that. I got into the house. There were, if I remember correctly, 5 bedrooms, and the owner of the house didn't live on site. Instead, she hired her cousin to manage the place. The place had a kitchen. I recorded a lot of Peter Dislike shows in the kitchen if you want to go back. And then there's a curtain separating the kitchen from a study room. They were working on renovations, so the 2 rooms were kind of connected, but there was a curtain separating it. So you can imagine that there's a lot of sound travels between the 2 rooms. Now, none of my other roommates ever complained, but he always got very upset at the noise level. And I would come home and I never turned on any audio, but eating, flushing the toilet with the bathroom door closed, and making art, right? You guys remember I like to cut up paper and put together laundry in squares. You can imagine how much noise it might make to gently use a tool for cutting paper and super glue and all that. And that would bother him. And in retrospect, what I should have done was not argue with him as he's being bothered by the noise, but talk to him on a Saturday afternoon when the idea of noise at night is the last thing on his mind, and talk to him about it and see if there could be other arrangements for how he arranges his work and everything. But at the time, I didn't always have the best financial situation, right? I couldn't just move out of there. One thing I do love about Airbnb is that I get to go in and out of places, right? I can check out if a place is a good fit and then potentially negotiate a longer term lease. It's almost like speed dating, but looking for roommates instead, right? See, we need to popularize the idea of speed roommating, right? Where you switch roommates every week until you meet somebody who's a good fit. Right? I like that idea. Airbnb's kind of a way to do that, right? But at the time, it seemed like a big deal because I had all my gear in there. I've also learned when you're speed roommating like that, don't move everything into the place. Because if you do and something turns south and you get into an argument with a roommate and you don't feel safe, it's very difficult to leave, especially things that if those are things that you care about. Right? Move things that you don't care too much about into the place. If it's a secondhand set of furniture that you almost want to give away anyway, yeah, move that in there. But your prized possessions, and if you have children, their prized possessions, you might want to think twice, right? But anyways, I have a better situation now. The other day, I was once again speed roommating again. I was talking to another potential roommate, and it gave me the creeps. He spent a good 10, 15 minutes going down the list of former roommates he had and all the drama they caused in his life. I knew within a couple sentences I would not be a good roommate, but I continued to engage in that conversation just to know what's out there in the world. The more I listen, the more I wish to bad luck in finding a bad roommate that will really make him realize just how bad he is, right? And also the precarity also happens at work too. 3 years ago, I was working at a tutoring center. One day, we had just lifted the mask mandate, early 2022. Just lifted the mandate, and now the kids are bringing fast food into the place. You got to remember, some of these kids, middle school, high school age, it might have been their first fast food meal in a long time, right? Because the whole situation with COVID. And I had to excuse myself because one of the students brought in something that I'm allergic to, or just an unknown food, and I just don't want to get a reaction. in the classroom, and my boss was really upset about that. And he added things that I didn't even say. Like he said that it was unprofessional of me to complain about how the food smells. I would never use the word smell. If it's something I'm allergic to, I'm allergic to it. I'd rather smell something bad in the classroom than to be exposed to an allergen. That's definitely not a word that I use. But you know what? I didn't argue back with him because I was in a precarious situation. We had just reopened from COVID. My finances could look better, let's put it that way. They weren't bad, but they could look better. But more importantly, my socialization definitely needed the job more than the finances. And so it put me in a really bad bind, if you will. I'm so glad that nowadays when I run into allergies, I can just speak up about it. I didn't always have that luxury. And it just goes to show that we have it almost reminds me of how our financial system looks like, right? The people who have more room to acquire more, right? It's very upsetting. Ditto with my dating life. You guys may remember last year I offered a reward for anybody who could set me up on a blind date. And so that first one was really tricky. But once I had one under my belt, it got exponentially easier each time because I wasn't desperate. In fact, nowadays, when if somebody were to set me up on a blind date, chances are I won't even have time to get involved in that anymore, right? It just goes to show how we have I don't know why the god of dislikes created a world where the people who always have more room to acquire more, right? It's not just money, it's also good health, love, friendship, all the other networking, right? The more you have, the easier it is to acquire all of that stuff, right? I just think it's really unfair, in my opinion. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.